Of food stored away at ports across the country could now go to waste following the shutdown of USAID.
Farmers are whining that the USAID is withholding funds for farmers.
Remember when Trump promised farmers a golden age? Well, looks like that shiny promise turned into a pile of manure. Farmers across America are watching their dreams go up in smoke faster than Trump's toupee in a windstorm.
Because Donald Trump has frozen the funding of the United States Department of Agriculture.
And Trump putting a halt on foreign aid. That includes food that is sent through USAID to international destinations.
From Make America Great Again to Make American Farmers Broke Again. Trump's tariff tantrum has sent farm sales to China plummeting by over 50%. Oops. Guess someone forgot to tell Donnie that trade wars aren't as easy to win as he thought.
The farmers are learning that their conservation payments are frozen because those contracts were funded through the Inflation Reduction.
President Trump ordered the Agriculture Department to freeze funds for several programs designated by President Joe Biden's signature clean.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
We learned today that farmers from Texas send their wheat down to ports here in the Houston area. We get rice from
on there. We are possibly going to lose our farm if NRCS doesn't hold up their contract with us on the EQIP program.
Remember when Trump promised farmers they'd be swimming in cash like Scrooge McDuck? Well, turns out he was full of more hot air than a corn silo in August. Our buddy Donald, or as I like to call him, Farmer Don't Know Jack, decided to play a little game of tariff tag with China. But instead of being it, our farmers ended up being out of business, that is. So picture this, Trump's strutting around like a rooster in the hen house, crowing about how his trade deals are gonna make farmers so happy. And these folks, bless their hearts, believed him. They thought they'd be rolling in dough faster than you can say kofefi. But then Farmer Don't Know Jack decided to poke the Chinese dragon with his tariff stick. And boy, did that dragon breathe fire.
The freeze paused some funding for the department's Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which helps farmers address natural resource concerns.
Louisiana and other crops from other states as well as part of that program. Now the short-term and long-term future.
China hit back harder than a mule kick to the family jewels, slapping tariffs on American farm goods. Suddenly, our farmers found themselves caught in the crossfire of an economic shootout. It was like watching a cowboy movie, except instead of tumbleweeds, we had soybeans rolling across empty fields. Speaking of soybeans, they became more like so long beans.
Our EQIP program, which is cost sharing on fences, waters, a well, and some seedings, was funded by the Inflation Reduction Act.
Rural Energy for America program, which provides financial assistance for farmers to improve their infrastructure.
Farm exports to China dropped faster than Trump's approval ratings at a fact-checkers convention. We're talking a 50% nosedive here, folks. That's right, half of their business went poof, like one of Trump's magic hairspray cans. As exports dried up, so did farmers' bank accounts. They started sweating more than Trump in a spelling bee. Bankruptcy suddenly became a more familiar word than harvest. It was like watching the American dream turn into a nightmare. All because old Donnie Dealmaker thought he could outsmart the global economy. And here's the kicker. Farm bankruptcies shot up by 20% in 2019. Turns out Trump's great deals were about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Farmers were filing more Chapter 12s than a librarian with OCD. It was a regular bankruptcy bonanza, courtesy of the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal Us.
Over $2 billion is grown every single year in America and sold into this program. So it's not just cutting USAID.
Pause or a freeze on the funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're not able to pay out on the stuff that we completed or anything going forward.
So Donnie Diapers thought he could fix his mess with a big old pile of cash, huh? Well, folks, that's like trying to put out a dumpster fire with a squirt gun. Our orange friend decided to play Santa Claus with taxpayer money, but this Santa had more coal than presents in his sack. Trump's bailouts were supposed to be a lifeline for struggling farmers. Instead, they turned out to be about as useful as a chocolate teapot. The money often went to the biggest farms, leaving small family operations high and dry. It's like trickle-down economics, but the only thing trickling down was disappointment and cow patties. By 2020, farm debt hit a whopping $416 billion. That's more zeros than Trump's IQ test. This debt was piling up faster than Grumpy Trumpy's McDonald's wrappers. And let's not forget, a big chunk of this financial doo-doo came from Trump's brilliant idea of picking a fight with China.
Farmers who signed contracts with the Agriculture Department under those programs paid up front.
There are serious unintended consequences, not just for USAID and the people that it helps, but also to America's farm economy.
Speaking of China, they decided to hit back harder than a kung fu master with a grudge. The USDA, that's the Department of Agriculture, not Uncle Sam's dumb advice, estimated that China's tariffs led to a $27 billion nosedive in foreign sales of US farm stuff. That's a lot of soybeans left rotting in the fields.
But the issue I have is I've already done a bunch of the work, already paid for the material, already paid for the labor, so I'm out all that cost.
To build fencing, plant new crops, and install renewable energy systems with guarantees that the federal government would issue grants.
While American farmers were crying in their cornflakes, foreign competitors were laughing all the way to the bank. Brazil swooped in like a caffeinated vulture, selling more soybeans to China than you could shake a chopstick at. Looks like Trump's America First policy put America last in the soybean sweepstakes. And how did the farmers feel about all this? Well, they were about as happy as a pig in a bacon factory. Many of them had voted for Trump, expecting him to be their knight in shining hairspray. Instead, they got a con man in an ill-fitting suit. The betrayal stung worse than sitting on a cow prod.
It's bad for American farmers, those farmers who voted for Trump. Paul Martin, the Inspector General,
and loan guarantees to cover at least part of their costs. Now, with that money frozen, they are on the hook.
Well, folks, it looks like Trump's art of the deal turned into the fart of the deal for our farmer friends. Remember when Donnie Diapers promised to make American agriculture great again? Yeah, that worked out about as well as his hairspray in a windstorm. Even the tough as nails Texas farmers are throwing in the towel. One of them said he'd vote for Trump again. No way, couldn't happen. Ouch. Turns out a thrice married billionaire isn't the best at keeping promises to hardworking folks. Who knew? So what's the lesson here, kids? Next time a politician promises to turn your cornfield into a gold mine, maybe ask them if they can tell a tractor from a golf cart first.
And I use my farm operating expenses in order to do those projects because per contract, I knew that I was going to get cost sharing refunds.
was down USA despite the fact that he has no statutory or constitutional authority to do so.
As for our orange turd in chief, he might want to stick to his natural habitat, tweeting from the toilet. Looks like he's not cut out for the whole helping people thing after all. Who would have thunk it?